You never realize how much you depend on Wi-Fi until it's gone. Mine died at exactly 10:47 p.m. on a Monday night, right in the middle of uploading a branding proposal for a client who was already annoyed with me. If I missed this deadline, that was it. No more gig, no more rent money, and no more pretending I had my life together. I sat there in my freezing apartment, staring at the no internet connection message like I could will it into working. The router had been acting up for weeks, but I kept putting off calling the ISP. Now it had finally crapped out for good. Outside, the November wind howled against the windows, rattling the plastic I'd taped up to keep the cold out. My landlord was still working on fixing the heat, which meant I could see my breath in my own living room. I wasn't about to sit here all night draining my phone's data plan, hoping the Wi-Fi magically came back. I needed a place that was warm, cheap, and open late. Burger King was the only option. It wasn't glamorous, but it was open 24 hours, had free Wi-Fi, and best of all, unlimited $1 coffee refills. So I grabbed my laptop, threw on my thickest hoodie, and walked the 4 blocks to the fluorescent glow of the Burger King off I-95. The place was mostly empty, except for a couple of truckers near the window and the night manager, Maria, wiping down the counter. She looked up when I walked in. "Coffee?" she asked, already reaching for a cup. "Black, thanks." She knew me by now. This wasn't my first time using Burger King as my makeshift office. I slid into my usual booth, third, from the left next to the fire exit. From here I could see everything. The counter, the bathrooms, the front doors. Not that anything ever happened, but I liked knowing my exits. And that's when I saw him. Same booth every night. Same ratty gray hoodie pulled up over his head. Same cold cup of coffee in front of him, untouched. Hoodie guy. He was always there. The first few times I figured he was just another night owl, maybe a student pulling an all-nighter. But he never had a laptop, never had a book, never even had food, except for a Whopper that sat half-eaten in front of him, like a prop. And he was staring at me. I tried to ignore it, focus on my work, but every time I looked up, his eyes flicked away like he'd been caught. At 1 a.m. I started packing up. When I looked back at his booth, he was gone, but his Whopper was still there, untouched. I stepped out into the cold, shivering as the wind cut through my hoodie. The streets were empty, just me, the hum of streetlights, and the occasional car rolling past on I-95. 2 blocks from my apartment, I heard it crunch. Sneakers on pavement, speeding up. I glanced over my shoulder. A shadow moved under the flickering streetlights. Someone was behind me, not just walking, keeping pace. I walked faster. So did they. Heart pounding, I shoved my hands into my pockets and forced myself not to run. Running meant panic. Running meant weakness. Instead, I cut across the laundromat parking lot, heading for my building's side entrance. My key fob beeped against the reader. The door clicked open. As I stepped inside, I felt it, movement behind me. I turned just in time to see a gloved hand reaching for the door. My door. I yanked it shut, the lock engaged with a solid thunk. On the other side of the glass, hoodie guy stood there smiling. Then he pointed. Not at me, at my chest. Confused, I looked down. I was still wearing my Burger King name tag. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, peeking through the blinds, watching the street below. For the first hour, nothing. Just wind, rustling leaves, the occasional headlights, flashing across the cracked pavement. Then, at 2:47 a.m., a figure appeared, hoodie guy. Standing across the street, hands in his pockets, staring up at my building. I grabbed my phone, fingers cold against the screen. Call the cops? What would I even say? Hey, there's a guy standing outside. He followed me home from Burger King. No, he didn't break in. No, he didn't threaten me, but he pointed at my name tag and now I'm freaked out. It sounded stupid. By 4 a.m. he was gone. But I didn't go back to Burger King the next night. A week later I was back, mostly because my new router was acting up and I had another deadline. Maria raised an eyebrow when I walked in. Where have you been? I hesitated. You still got security cameras? She nodded slowly. Yeah, why? I told her. Everything. The staring, the following, the way he stood outside my apartment at 3 a.m. like a damn horror movie villain. Maria frowned, then disappeared into the back. When she came out, she looked pissed. Come here, she said, leading me to the office. On the screen, grainy black and white footage played. 1:15 a.m. Hoodie guy leaving Burger King right after me. 1:22 a.m. Hoodie guy testing car. Doors in the parking lot. 1:30 a.m. Hoodie guy standing by my booth staring at my empty coffee cup. 2:47 a.m. Hoodie guy outside my apartment building. The final clip was the worst. 3 nights before he followed me home, before I even noticed him, he was already outside my building, watching. Maria banned him the next night. Apparently he'd been harassing the girl at the drive-thru too. Cops were called. He vanished before they showed up. I stopped going to Burger King. Now I work at Panera. Better Wi-Fi, better coffee. But sometimes, when my router glitches, and I sit there debating whether to go out, I swear I smell it. Charbroiled beef. I never planned on coming back. The last time I set foot in this Burger King on Highway 101, it ended in a confrontation that still sat like undigested beef in my stomach. 1 year later, I was here again, against every instinct telling me to turn the hell around. Exposure therapy, my therapist had called it. You need to face the places that trigger your anxiety. Prove to yourself that nothing bad will happen. So I went, parked in the same cracked asphalt lot, walked through the same greasy-smelling doors. The place looked exactly as I remembered. Plastic booths, a sticky tile floor, and the overhead menu flickering slightly like it was running on borrowed time. I ordered a black coffee because I wasn't about to risk food poisoning on top of everything else. That'll be... Oh, actually, you're covered, the cashier said, smiling. Lady ahead paid for you. I blinked. What? She pointed to a woman in a wide sun hat, already heading for the door. She gave me a little wave before disappearing outside. For a second, I almost believed in random kindness again. Then I grabbed my coffee and saw the note. It was rolled up inside the cardboard sleeve. A tiny, tightly folded scrap of paper. I opened it with shaking hands. $10,000 by Friday or your sister learns what you did in Vegas. We know about the scar above your left knee. Burger King parking lot 2 a.m. Come alone. I reread it 3 times, my breath getting shorter each time. My mind tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a joke, a stupid prank. Maybe someone got the wrong guy. Maybe I was losing it. Then I saw the handwriting, the same jagged script from last year's ketchup-stained napkin. The blood in my arms went cold. Because last year someone had left a similar note, only that one had been a warning. A cryptic, bizarre message about staying quiet. And now, someone was escalating. I didn't go to the parking lot at 2 a.m. Instead, I went to Santa Barbara PD. Detective Ruiz sat across from me in his cluttered office, listening as I unfolded the note on his desk. He had the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much, and the coffee breath of someone who hadn't slept in 24 hours. Blackmail not common at fast food joints, he said, frowning. Too public, too messy. It happened last year too, I muttered. He looked up at that. Same location? I nodded. Ruiz leaned back, rubbing his face. All right, let's start with the basics. They checked security footage. It had glitched. Right at the moment my coffee was handed to me, they dusted the note for prints. Nothing. Your Vegas secret, Ruiz asked. What's that about? I exhaled. I hadn't told anyone exactly what happened in Vegas, not even my sister. But it wasn't some deep criminal scandal. It was a stupid, drunken mistake. I'd lost my wedding ring at a Burger King lounge after one too many whiskey shots. I had spent 3 hours digging through trash before finally giving up and buying a cheap replacement the next morning. That was it. I told Ruiz. He stared at me, unimpressed. That's it? That's the big scandal? I shrugged. Classic shakedown, he muttered. They always pick places like this, anonymous, busy, no cameras, but the knee scar, that's personal. I swallowed. He was right. Whoever this was knew me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did 3 things. 1. Checked my car for trackers. Nothing. 2. Changed all my sister's social media settings to private. 3. Tried to connect the dots and failed. The next morning, Ruiz called. I had officers stake out the parking lot last night, he said. No one showed. So what now? I asked. Now? He sighed. Now we wait. That wasn't reassuring, especially when 3 days later I found another note, this time wedged under my windshield wiper. TikTok, Ethan, time's running out. I nearly threw up. Because this time the handwriting was different, and that meant more than one person was involved. A month later, the Burger King closed. Ruiz called it a coincidence. Corporate shut it down for health violations. But I didn't believe in coincidences anymore, especially not when the official health report leaked online. One sentence stood out: unidentified blackmail notes found in 12% of sampled beverage sleeves. 12%. Meaning, I wasn't the only target. I wasn't special. I was just another random name on their list. I moved apartments 2 weeks. Later, changed my number. But sometimes when I get coffee at a drive-thru, I still check the sleeve because deep down I know one day the next note will find me. The night was electric. After hours of pulsating beats and Travis Scott's hypnotic rhythms at ViStar Arena, my friends and I craved something greasy to cap off the evening. The 24-hour Burger King off I-95 in Jacksonville seemed like the perfect spot. We stumbled into the joint around 1:30 a.m., still buzzing from the concert. The neon flame-broiled sign flickers erratically, casting sporadic shadows across the parking lot. Inside, the air was thick and stifling. The AC had given up long ago, probably around the time Hurricane Matthew rolled through. Tyler, Keisha, and I slid into a booth that had seen better days. The vinyl seats were sticky and the table wobbled with the slightest touch. I unwrapped my Bacon King, the aroma momentarily overpowering the stale grease that lingered in the air. Halfway through my burger, a man approached our table. He appeared to be in his late 50s, wearing a faded Burger King polo with a manager pin that looked suspiciously new and slightly askew. The scent of fry grease and stale menthols clung to him. "Y'all gotta help me," he wheezed, wiping his hands on stained khakis. "Women's bathrooms flooding. Gonna short out the whole building." Keisha arched an eyebrow, skepticism evident. "Ain't this location's bathrooms been closed since that meth bust?" Her words hung in the air. We'd all heard the rumors about the restrooms being sealed off after a drug-related incident. The man's request felt off, but the haze of the concert and the late hour dulled our instincts. I exchanged a glance with Tyler, who gave a non-committal shrug. Something about the man's demeanor unsettled me, but I couldn't pinpoint what. Keisha's eyes, however, were sharp and alert, scanning the man with suspicion. "Sir," she began cautiously, "if there's an issue, shouldn't you call maintenance or—" The man interrupted, his tone more urgent. "No time. Need an extra set of hands now." Despite the oddity of the situation, the remnants of adrenaline from the concert made me restless. "Maybe we should help," I murmured, starting to rise. Keisha's hand shot out, gripping my wrist firmly. Her nails dug in just enough to convey her message. Something wasn't right. The man noticed her hesitation and forced a chuckle. "Just a quick fix, won't take but a minute." Tyler leaned in, whispering, "Man, this feels sketchy." I nodded slowly, the fog of the evening lifting slightly. "Yeah, maybe we should just finish up and head out." The man stared at us for a moment longer, his expression unreadable, before muttering, "Suit yourselves." He turned and disappeared, toward the back of the restaurant. We sat in silence, the weight of the encounter settling over us. The once inviting aroma of our meals now seemed nauseating. "Let's get out of here," Keisha finally said, her voice steady but low. No one disagreed. As we gathered our things, the unease lingered. The man's approach had been abrupt, his demeanor unsettling. Now, with a moment to reflect, the inconsistencies became glaring. First, his manager pin was crooked, as if it had been hastily attached. Most employees took pride in their appearance, ensuring their uniforms were neat. This pin looked out of place, almost like an afterthought. Second, the keys he had jangled earlier bore a Honda logo, not the standard issue for Burger King staff. Why would a manager carry car keys instead of store keys when addressing a facility issue? Third, and most alarming, Tyler had noticed fresh scratches on the man's wrists, thin red lines that suggested someone had recently tried to fend him off. Keisha voiced what we were all thinking. Something seriously off with that guy. Tyler nodded. Yeah, and didn't you mention the bathrooms were closed after that meth incident? I recalled the news reports. The restrooms had been sealed off due to health violations after a drug-related arrest. There was no way they were operational. Now, why would he need help with a bathroom that's been out of order for months? I mused. Keisha's grip on her purse tightened. We need to report this. Something's not right. We approached the front counter, where a young employee was refilling the napkin dispenser. Keisha leaned in, her voice low. Hey, who's that manager that just talked to us? The older guy. The employee looked puzzled. Manager? This shift's just me and Carla in the back, no one else is on duty. A chill ran down my spine. By the time we got home, sleep wasn't happening. Not for me, not for Keisha, and definitely not for Tyler. We all sat in my living room, half watching YouTube clips from the concert, half waiting for some kind of news update. There was this strange, unspoken agreement not to talk about what happened. But around 3 a.m., Keisha broke the silence. You think that dude's done this before? She asked. Tyler leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That guy wasn't right, the scratches, the fake badge. He wasn't trying to fix anything. I pulled out my phone and searched local news with half-hearted keywords. Burger King impersonator, bathroom scam, meth bust BK. Honestly, I wasn't expecting anything, but then I found it. Guys, check this, I said, tilting the screen toward them. The headline read, Man arrested at Waffle House after attempting to lure employee into storage room. Same tactics used at Burger King, Taco Bell. The mugshot hit hard. Same guy, same haunted eyes. The article said his name was Dwayne Coulter, 56. He'd been arrested just a few hours after we left. Caught at a Waffle House 5 miles away, trying the same bathroom flooding routine on a young waitress. He was wanted in Georgia and Alabama. Allegedly used similar ruses, pretending to be a manager, claiming urgent facility issues always late at night, always targeting women. And the kicker? Jacksonville PD had already been investigating this exact Burger King. Turns out, several women had reported a man matching Coulter's description lurking around the building in previous weeks. No uniform, no ID, just showing up and asking for help. Keisha stared at the screen, then stood up. We almost followed him. You almost did. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. That week, things shifted in weird little ways. We stopped hanging out late. Even Keisha, who was usually fearless, would check the backseat of her car before driving. Tyler kept a mini flashlight on his keychain, just in case. And me? I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. Not because I thought Coulter would come back. He was in jail. But because the idea that someone like him existed had rattled me in a way I couldn't explain. 2 days after the article hit, Burger King shut down temporarily. The sign out front said it was for maintenance issues, but we knew better. An online post from a former employee leaked a picture. The restrooms, padlocked from the outside. Inside, empty. No toilets, no plumbing. Just concrete floors and a pipe bolted to the wall with handcuffs rusted shut on it. Keisha sent it to our group chat with one line. We were a door away. Tyler started calling that kind of feeling creep radar. We even made a joke out of it. When we spotted someone off in public, we'd say, BK code red. But under the humor was real fear. A few weeks later, a plain white envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a receipt from that same Burger King. Under the total, instead of the usual, "Thank you for visiting," it said, "Thank you for being vigilant." No one could explain how or why it got to me. I hadn't used my card, I hadn't given my address, but someone knew. We never went back to that Burger King. Not even after it reopened briefly with new staff and brighter lights. The vibe was off, like it had been scrubbed down too hard, like they were trying to erase something. Officer Delgado reached out a month later. He'd been assigned to the case after Coulter's arrest. We met at a Starbucks, neutral ground. He wanted to hear our story firsthand. Said the pattern went deeper than Coulter. Said there were copycats, others who took notes from the headlines. He was smart in a way that makes your skin crawl, Delgado told me. No violence, not directly. He let others make the choice. Just needed one person to follow. I asked him what happened to the storage closet, the one with the pipe and handcuffs. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "We're still trying to figure out how long that setup was there. The unit was off the floor plan. Never should have existed." After that, I stopped eating fast food for a while. Couldn't stomach it. Even now, when I pass a 24-hour Burger King with that familiar neon hum, something tenses in my chest. I still hang with Keisha and Tyler. We joke about it, sometimes about the Whopper distraction, but the jokes always end too quickly. One of us always goes quiet. That night could have gone so many different ways. We think about that a lot. Sometimes, when the city's real quiet and I see a fast food sign flickering in the dark, I wonder, how many others didn't get up from that booth? And whether someone somewhere still walks into those places wearing a badge that doesn't belong to him, asking for help with a problem that doesn't exist. I don't ask for much. Just one peaceful Sunday where I can sleep in, skip shaving, and maybe treat myself to something fried and full of regret. After sweating through changing the oil in my Camry and rotating the tires on a neighbor's Dodge, for beer money I was starving. Too tired to cook, too cheap for DoorDash. That's how I found myself at the Burger King off Route 22. This place, it's seen better decades. The flickering, flame-broiled sign out front might as well read, "Flame broke." Inside, the AC groaned like it wanted to give up, and the fry smell had a stale, burnt edge to it, like the oil had PTSD. I got in line behind a lady with 3 kids tearing open ketchup packets like animals. It was 2:30 and hot enough outside to fry an egg on the hood of my car. The line stretched all the way to the soda machine, past the out-of-order ice cream sign that looked permanent. That's when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Hey, brother," came the voice, raspy and loud. I turned to find a guy who looked like he crawled out of a barbecue pit. Mid-40s, sweat pouring down his temples, shirt stained with what I hoped was coffee. "Mind if I jump ahead? Just need a water. Diabetes acting up." He gestured somewhere around his belly like there was some invisible insulin pump I was supposed to see. Now I'm not a jerk. I work with guys who've got real medical problems, and I wasn't about to be the guy who tells someone with diabetes to pound sand, so I shrugged and stepped aside. "Yeah, sure, go ahead." He gave me a nod, kind of like we were on the same team or something, and slid up to the counter. And that, I would learn, was where everything started going downhill. I should have known something was off when he started licking his lips like he was about to win the lottery. Shanice, the cashier, was already taking an order from some teen paying in nickels, so the guy had a moment to gear up. By the time Shanice looked up at him, world's best dad had his game face on. "I'll take a double Whopper meal, large, with fries. Make that 2 apple pies." "Nah, screw it, make it 3. And a chocolate shake. Extra napkins. Big order today." Then he winked at me like we were in on the joke together. I blinked. "You said water," I said. He turned to me, smiling like a used car salesman. "Relax, Snowflake, it's just fast food." Before I could say anything else, Shanice had punched in the order. She didn't even flinch. I swear she could have been working a combat zone and still kept that same bored expression. He paid in crumpled bills and loose change, muttering, Something about this country going to hell, and shuffled off to the side, humming as he waited. I stayed quiet. It wasn't worth it. I just wanted my Whopper and to get home before I melted into my seat. But then he started chatting up the folks behind me, talking about his insulin allergy and how sugar-free ketchup was a government hoax. I pretended not to hear, focused on the laminated menu like it was a crossword puzzle. By the time I got to the counter, Shanice looked up at me with eyes that said, "Don't even start." "Just a regular Whopper meal," I muttered. She nodded and printed the receipt. "Your number 1 is 17. I stepped aside to wait, watching World's Best Dad like he might try and order a second round. I didn't trust him anymore. Not that I ever really did. There was something off about him. The kind of guy who causes a scene at Little League games and threatens to call the mayor. I should have walked out right then. But I didn't. Because I was hungry, and I'd already invested 20 minutes of my life. I was leaning against the napkin dispenser when Shanice called 118. That was him. The guy strutted over like he'd just won bingo night at the VFW. I watched him collect his tray, towering with food that looked like it needed its own zip code. He grabbed a handful of napkins like he was stocking up for winter, then shuffled back toward the soda machine. "Mark Dawson," Shanice called out next. "Order 117. I grinned. Karma. Sweet, greasy karma. I made sure to walk slowly past him, holding my bag up just enough to catch his eye. "Guess Karma's flame-broiled today," I said, half joking. He scowled, then knocked over his drink like it was an accident. His oversized Dr. Pepper exploded across the tile and right onto my jeans. The splash reached all the way down my right leg. "You kidding me?" I snapped. He raised his arms. "Slipped, brother. These trays are tricky." I looked down at the soaked denim clinging to my shin and had to bite my tongue. My brand new work jeans, $40 down the drain. The sticky mess was already starting to dry in the heat. Shanice was wiping the counter, not even surprised. Probably not the first time she'd seen soda warfare go down. I grabbed extra napkins and did my best to clean myself up. I caught him, smirking as he headed out the door, sucking down that shake like he'd earned it. I wasn't gonna follow him. I wasn't about to throw hands in a Burger King over Dr. Pepper, but I made a mental note. Don't ever trust a guy who smells like lighter fluid and lies about diabetes. Still, I had my Whopper, and by God, I was gonna eat it. I finished my meal in my car, AC blasting and radio tuned low to some classic rock station. Just as I was licking the last of the ketchup off my thumb, I spotted him again. He was standing by his beat-up Tahoe, digging around in the back seat. Looked like he was struggling to find something. I didn't think much of it until I heard it splatter. I turned my head in time to see a vanilla shake hit my rear bumper. Not dropped, thrown. The white goo splattered like bird crap on steroids, dripping down toward the exhaust. Then came the real kicker. He walked over to my car, cool as hell, and lifted his boot. Before I could react, he kicked my front headlight. Crack. "Oops," he muttered, not even looking at me. He lit a cigarette with a shaky hand and walked back to his Tahoe like nothing happened. I got out of the car, staring at the mess. The shake was dripping like some sick art installation. My headlight looked okay, but I wasn't so sure. That sound didn't lie. I didn't yell, didn't chase, just stood there, jaw clenched. He pulled out of the lot without looking back, smoke trailing from his window. I got in and drove straight to my buddy Ray's auto shop. Needed a second opinion before I did something stupid. Ray looked at the headlight and gave it a tap. "You got lucky. Should have cracked the housing, but it held. Must be that aftermarket part we put in last fall. German plastic, tougher than it looks." I told him the story, every stupid detail. He just laughed and said, "Only you, man. Only you." I still go to that Burger King sometimes, but now I park where the cameras can see me. I keep a roll of napkins in the glove box and I check the parking lot before I go inside. I never saw that guy again, not until a month later, when I was flipping through the State Journal Register. Right there in the local section, mugshot of World's Best Dad, real name, Dennis Miles. Arrested in Decatur for scamming drive-thrus with fake diabetes claims. The charge? Fraudulent use of diabetes. Turns out he hid over 20 places across 3 states. Some people collect stamps. Others collect pity and apple pies. Me? I just wanted a damn Whopper. And I still swear, no matter how much I scrub, the ghost of that vanilla shake is still on my bumper. The desert wind hit us like a furnace blast as we spilled out of Danny's truck, our ears still ringing from Metallica's Encore. My throat was raw from screaming lyrics I barely remembered, and my stomach felt like it was trying to digest itself. We needed food, real food, not gas station chips or whatever was left in Danny's glove box. That's how we ended up at the 24-hour Burger King off I-10, a beacon of fluorescent light in an otherwise dead strip of El Paso asphalt. The drive-thru had a few cars lined up, but inside, the place was almost empty, except for a trucker hunched over his coffee and a couple of high school kids laughing way too loudly in the corner. We grabbed a booth near the window. Jess slid in first, stretching her legs across the torn vinyl seat. Danny flopped down across from her, already unwrapping his burger like it might vanish if he waited too long. I took the outside seat, closest to the aisle, halfway through my first bite when he appeared. The guy smelled like old fryer grease, and something sharper, something that made the hairs on my arms stand up. His Burger King polo sagged on his thin frame, the collar stained a deep, greasy yellow. A name tag, barely hanging on, read trainee in stiff new lettering. "Kids, I need help," he wheezed. His breath reeked of cigarettes and onions. He lifted a set of jangling keys. They looked heavy, like the kind only a manager would have. "Women's bathroom's about to flood the whole place," Jess frowned. "Aren't you supposed to call a plumber?" The guy's smile twitched. "Ain't got time. Water's already coming up. Need a hand turning off the valve. He pointed at me. "You look strong. Come on." It took 3 seconds for my sleep-deprived, concert-fried brain to register that something was off. First, the keys. Every fast food joint I'd ever worked at had their logo on the keys, a little plastic tag with the store number. His didn't. Second, the uniform. It was Burger King, sure, but the fit was weird, like it had been pulled off a much bigger guy. The name tag looked fresh. Too fresh, like it had never gone through a single wash cycle. Third, the blood. Not a lot, but enough. Dried under his fingernails, barely noticeable unless you were looking. Danny must have seen it too, because he muttered, "Man, just tell Maria." Maria was the night shift manager. She'd been working here since forever, and if there was anyone who would know about a flooding bathroom, it was her. The guy hesitated. For a second, his whole body stiffened, like he hadn't expected us to push back. Then, too quickly, he chuckled, waving the keys again. "Maria's busy. Y'all don't trust me?" His voice had an edge now, a forced casualness. I almost stood up. Almost. But Jess, sitting beside me, kicked my shin so hard under the table I nearly choked on my drink. It snapped me out of whatever weird, sleep-deprived fog had me halfway convinced this was normal. "Now, man," I said, keeping my voice even. "We're just here to eat." His eyes flicked to Jess. She was staring straight ahead, her face blank. Then just like that, he grinned. "Suit yourself," he muttered, turning too fast, disappearing toward the back of the store. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Jess finally looked at me. "You're an idiot," she whispered. The next morning, I woke up to 15 missed messages in our group chat. Jess had sent the first one. "Jess, turn on the news." I grabbed my phone, still half asleep, and tapped the link. Local news, El Paso. Carlos Mendez, 57, arrested after attempted kidnapping at Denny's. I read the article twice before it clicked. Same MO. Fake uniform, fake name tag, fake emergency. This time, he'd lured a waitress into the walk-in freezer before she realized something was wrong. She locked herself in the supply closet and called 911. Danny. That was the same guy. I swear to God. "Jess, I knew something was off. You almost followed him, dumbass. I felt sick." Then I read the last part of the article. Authorities believe Mendez may be connected to similar incidents in Phoenix, Tucson, and Las Cruces. If you have information, call. I stopped reading. Because the kicker? The Burger King bathrooms had been closed for years, ever since a meth lab exploded in there back in 2019. I went back to Burger King that night, mostly because I needed to see it again. Maria was behind the counter. When she saw me, she raised an eyebrow. Back so soon? I hesitated. Then, lowering my voice, I asked, "That guy from last night, who was he?" Maria's face darkened. "That wasn't one of my employees." My stomach dropped. "He had keys," I said, like that would explain something. "No, he didn't." Maria reached under the counter and pulled out the real set of keys. Hers were thick, worn, with a bright red plastic tag that read, "Store number 2174. I looked toward the back of the restaurant, toward where the guy had disappeared. "Did you check the security footage?" I asked. Maria nodded. "Nothing." That word chilled me more than anything. Nothing. Like he'd never been there at all. A week later, we met, up at a different Burger King across town. Jess slid our tray onto the table, shaking her head. "Y'all notice something?" I picked up my receipt, paused. At the bottom, where the manager's signature was supposed to be, was a new phrase printed in bold capital letters. "Stay safe." Danny laughed nervously. "That's new." None of us said what we were thinking. The original Burger King location closed last month. Official reason? Biohazard concerns. Unofficially, some places just get tainted.